Don't mind me. I'm just gonna corner on my head while we're talking about reparenting today. So welcome back to my channel. Thank you for being here. Today we're gonna be talking about worthiness, reparenting, that concept, and what it means, how it originates, just all these sorts of things, right? So let's just get right into it. So as you can tell, sometimes from my videos, I always mention self-worth and being good enough specifically. And one thing I was really curious about was how children feel about said topic, right? Self-worth, and just wanted to get a child's perspective, right? So to start off this video, I did an interview with my older sister, who's about 34, I think, and then my niece, who's about 9 years old, just to get a contrast of answers. And I asked them a series of questions in regard to self-worth, self-love, all those sorts of things. If you hear a little lisp, I have my Invisalign in. Mind your business. But some of the questions I asked included, do you think you're good enough and why? And then the little girl said, yes, because I feel good about myself. And then my older sister says, yes, but then I noted that it took her longer to answer. She had to think about it. But that was interesting because the little girl said it immediately. I was like, do you think you're good enough? She's like, yeah. And I was like, why? And she was like, because I feel good about myself. And I was like, it just comes with ease when you're a child, right? But then my older sister, I was like, do you think you're good enough and why? And she was like she had to think of reasons to be good enough, right? Just note that. And the second question I asked was, is worthiness earned? And the little girl said, no, you should always have self-pride. And my sister said, no, you shouldn't base worth on getting. And I said, okay. Third question I asked, why do you think people don't treat themselves like they're enough? And the little girl said, they're clueless. Fourth question I asked is, what makes you sad? She said, losing a good friend, losing a family member, and injuries. I was like, true that. So I asked those questions just to get a little insight, because I feel like self-worth is always something that self-worth is something that's honed in us when we were growing up. And either we have high self-esteem, low self-esteem, a good sense of self-worth, or a bad sense of self-worth. And I wanted to ask literally a child and a grown woman the differences between the adult and the little girl in answering the questions was that little girl was confident and was able to answer the questions quickly. Like, yeah, I'm good enough because I feel good about myself. She's kind of answering in that way of like, why, like in a questioning me kind of answer, like, why wouldn't I be good enough kind of tone. And then my older sister had like to think about it and like ponder reasons why she's good enough and things of that sort. What makes up everyone these days is their childhood, whether that be trauma or just simple experiences molds us into who we are today, right? But we also have to take in consideration, I interviewed a very confident child. If I were to interview my fourth grade self, she wouldn't have been able to say she's good enough because she's overweight, she's not pretty enough, her glasses, her clothes. Like, she would have used excuses. Like, if I was like, do you feel like you're good enough? And she would be like, no, because I'm not skinny, all my friends are skinny. Like, those used to be the thoughts that used to be going through my head as a child, you know? So keep in consideration, I interviewed a very confident child. Is all hope completely lost? So me growing up, I still have low self-worth issues, but the difference is now I just don't act in regard to them. I don't react as intensely as I used to in regard to my low self-worth. In regard to the fourth grade me who grew up still having low self-worth, still having to just learn how to quote unquote reparent myself with new beliefs, new systems that would help me essentially, develop these mindsets that I didn't have as a child. I didn't really get any direct sources for this video, but a lot of the ones I did research though, all they say the same thing. Reparenting essentially is giving yourself everything that you didn't get as a child, whether that be emotional love, support, just anything you feel like you didn't receive as a child, things you can give yourself now as an adult, a fully capable adult. So my question to y'all is reparenting a completely set in stone like fix for a traumatic upbringing? And I say that I ask y'all that because I'm in the middle. I know reparenting is something my therapist even mentions, and like it's a very prominent thing within like the shadow work realm as well, which I'm a huge advocate of shadow work. Reparenting, it's a beautiful concept, but my question to y'all, like I said, do you think it is a completely set in stone healing technique to help us completely heal those parts of ourselves that were neglected or not taken care of growing up? So say, for example, I was going through my millions and millions of journals and just flipping through it to look for something. But then, I got caught up in reading and I saw how like throughout the years, I typically talk about the same things over and over and over. And a lot of them are in regard to like self-worth, trying to release certain validations, whether that be from men or just society. And specifically with self-worth, I found myself constantly affirming myself over the years, talking about You're good enough, Isabel. You're more than enough. Your self-worth is inherent. You're good enough. You're on, just affirming myself in regard to self-worth for years, doing the work to reparent, but I still deal with the same emotional turmoil to this day. So that had me thinking like, I've always had the mentality that like, oh yeah, reparenting, once you do it successfully, it completely heals this part of yourself so you never feel those feelings again, right? But then I started to think, wait, is reparenting more so just like training yourself to react differently to situations that trigger you? Or is it completely like as the name says, reparent, where you raise yourself again to not experience certain things, raise yourself to be confident, raise yourself in a way that you never feel like you have low self-worth again. And so I was like, so I wanted to bring it up for discussion because I searched this well online. Of course, I didn't get the article, but this is from what I researched, when I Google searched, will unworthiness ever go away? And they're just talking about like very, affirming yourself, doing new, implementing new habits into your routine, affirming yourself, doing all the things that your inner child needs, and acknowledging them and loving them and all that good stuff from shadow work and inner child work. That's all there was. It wasn't talking about, and then it will go away. So I was like, So I think from my own personal conclusion, which is not it's completely just my opinion, it's taking care of yourself emotionally, which is something we can do to our present selves that we didn't experience when we were younger. But will those traumatic, triggering feelings ever truly dissipate and go away? Or are we just retraining ourselves how to cope with it better? And I don't have the answer to that, but it really made me think. It also made me think about the example of, say, if y'all have ever seen Euphoria, y'all know who Maddie is, and like there's one scene where she was talking about confidence, just fake it, and like no one will ever know if it's real or not. And I was like, is that the same thing for ourselves, where it's like we reparent, we have this ideal vision of who we want to be, but will we ever become that? Or will we like fully, completely embody that version of ourselves we want to be? Or will we just perform the actions and routines of said person or who we want to become, and just live the way we want to, live the way we dream about? But will we ever truly embody and feel those brand new feelings that we want to feel whilst being the newer version of ourselves? Does that make sense? I will be battling, not for negative self-talk, just realistically, that like I feel like I'll like forever embody and have anxieties because, of course, one, I have anxiety, but two, I feel like with also generational trauma passed on. My mom has anxiety, her mom had anxiety. I don't know if you've ever read the book It Didn't Start With You, where they literally talk about scientific evidence of how traumas are passed down. They can be passed down. Now, some people experience emotions and feelings that didn't technically belong to them, that could have been experienced by a family member who has passed on, or you experience something similar to a family member who's passed on or whatever. It's like traumas that were experienced by someone else, you feel. And for an example, like in the book, they talk about, like, I think it was a mouse experiment where there's like the main rat, whatever. And they would make that mouse afraid of the scent of like strawberry or something. So they'll make it smell strawberry and like zap it. So every time it would smell strawberry, it would like have a little panic attack, right? And then they did it to that child. That grandmother rat had like a baby, and that baby had a baby. And then they had the baby mouse like get near strawberry, and then the baby mouse started freaking out, even though it wasn't exposed to the initial shock that the grandmother mouse experienced. That example really stuck with me, because I was like, wow, that makes total sense. Because sometimes I feel anxiety that was come out of nowhere, and I'm like, and I know my mom is a very anxious person. My grandmother was a very anxious person. So I'm like, that's crazy how it's traits, feelings, even traumas can be passed down. So bringing it back in. So there's different parts that are at play within this whole topic of worthiness and reparenting, because when you reparent, it's also like taking consideration, am I going to reparent the parts of myself that were passed down to me through my family, through generations of trauma, and just from my own trauma too, growing up, per se, experiences, what I've gained from my upbringing. Can those be fixed? Can those be like genuinely fixed, where I can't feel unworthy and have my anxiety anymore, where my child won't have anxiety or feel unworthy? Or is it all innate, and like we just get better at handling the reactions and acting different in regard to how we feel? Is that the fix? Or do we actually eventually feel healed after doing all the work? That's my question for y'all. A lot to reflect on. Boom, there you have it. Finished my nasty little cornrows to stick under a wig all week. But yeah, that's the video. Thank you for watching and I appreciate it. Let me know what you guys think. It's a very heavy topic I try to condense in a really short video. So let me know what y'all think. All right, see you in the next one. Bye.